Well, for better for worse, the US uh, government under the Biden administration has um, is widely considered to be hawkish towards cryptocurrencies.
Mhm.
Uh, I sense that people are very worried about the transparency of or the reason for central bank digital currencies. That this doesn't seem to have been particularly well explained at a government level. I mean, obviously, as I said, 86% of central banks around the world are in some shape or form trialing or piloting the use of CBDCs. But the reasons for that, I think, have not been fully explained, particularly, as you said earlier, from a privacy point of view. And that is that must get a lot more focus, I think, from a political point of view. Politicians in Europe, I would less inclined to say the US, because the US is somewhat behind in its own research into the use of a digital dollar, for example. What they have done as a stopgap is created a thing called the FedNow system, which is a real time, pretty much real time payment system that's going to be used by US banks and financial institutions domestically. But when it comes to I think the lack of progress in the US towards its own digital dollar doesn't mitigate what are still, very valid concerns about privacy and liberty. The potential for governments to turn off literally your access to finance is one that has not, I think, been properly addressed, and that is a concern, a growing concern. Here am I as someone speaking, as a member of the media, but I think mainstream media. That's a little bit of a worn phrase now, but let's say major publishers have not really addressed that, I think, and have followed the historic argument that cryptocurrencies are bad, CBDCs are a good way to address the shortcomings of decentralized finance, cryptocurrencies. Therefore, they're good.
Why do we think that? Why do you think that? Because it seems to me like so kind of, maybe it's naive, because like obviously you have all of these computer scientists and nerds with crypto that are doing all sorts of funky stuff with it, pretty much like from the staking, all of these buzzwords come together. Do you think that's the negative kind of like reputation that, now with central bank digital currencies, there's some adults in the room and we now properly, can properly regulate it, can look at it properly? Is it, do you think that there is something to it?
Yeah, I think it's about control. I mean,
right.
We've seen, the debate, whether you agree or disagree, coming out of COVID about, the issues that related to privacy there, the coercion of certain and intimidation of certain individuals, for example, now has, it suddenly looks a lot different than it did a couple of years ago, for example. So I think this is a conversation about control. It's about personal liberty. It's about the encroachment of government and government-related institutions into our personal lives, surveillance. This just seems to almost complete the circle of maybe I'm being slightly cynical, but I mean it fulfills the circle of government's view into our own personal lives, and I think that has to be debated a lot more. And the fact that cryptocurrencies can overturn a lot of those concerns, and also have proven for the most part to be secure. I wouldn't say the blockchain, for example, is totally infallible, but it's proven to be pretty watertight right now. Obviously, the hacking has gone on, but that's we're talking about hacking of exchanges mostly, which is centralized finance. What I'm talking about is decentralized finance. So, which most of those concerns the blockchain environment can overcome.
One thing that's also very badly covered, or has been very badly covered, I think, from the mainstream media, that when you have an FTX blowing up, that this was not decentralized finance, right? So I think
absolutely right. That's absolutely right, and it's a very good point. People have got to distinguish between what is decentralized finance and what is centralized finance. Most of the embarrassments have been with centralized exchanges, which is, they're engaging, albeit in a different form, in illicit activity that goes on everywhere else in the financial system as we speak. In other words, people getting up to no good and trying to cut corners and engage in corrupt practices. So I think that CBDCs we have to embrace with a great deal of caution, and purely and simply that if we do not want to allow a further move towards any kind of totalitarianism. And again, throughout throughout COVID, we saw the emergence of these very strong, we say, macho leaders, which have advocated some kind of totalitarianism. That's another debate.